Every farm has a story. When it comes to dairy farming, these stories are often only heard by the animals raised, the land stewarded, and the family that makes it all possible. Join me, Dairy Gal Val, as I interview individuals from across the dairy industry, both within the United States and across the globe, discussing topics like farm management, the food industry, ag business and technology, and most importantly, their farm story. This is the Dairy Hour Podcast.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Dairy Hour. I am your host, Dairy Gal Val, and I am joined here with David Hackner, the farmer advocate from Florida. How are you, David?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on today.
Thanks for joining me. I'm really excited to hear about your story and how you ended up being such a great advocate for farms of basically all types, very strong presence on social media. And I know you do a lot with youth in agriculture, which is really exciting as well. So I guess if you want to start it off, give us a basic snapshot of what you do at this point in your life, your day-to-day activities, your full-time job, and all your other hats that you wear.
Sure. So my full-time job is I am the 4-H Youth Development Agent here in Martin County, Florida. I work with the through the University of Florida IFAS, which is the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences, here in the Extension Office. So my job is kind of twofold, really. It's the one fold is I work with the adult volunteers that are our 4-H club leaders, and I work with them to help provide the best opportunities we can for the youth in our community through the 4-H program. And then I work with our youth as well. Working with the youth, I'm finding what are their interests and how can we best meet their needs to make sure they are ready to have a successful life once they leave the 4-H program, once they leave high school. This is pretty awesome for me to be the 4-H agent because I was actually a Martin County 4-H kid. So to be able to come back now to this program that helped me come out of my shell is pretty awesome. Along with being the 4-H agent, I am also a small farmer. I'm a small acreage farmer. I like to call myself a small holder farmer. I don't know if that fits or not, but I raise livestock on my 6 acres along with my family. We have sheep, we have goats, which that's a whole nother story, but we have them.
I have
We
goats too, so I know all about the goat stories and how that goes. But I'm
yes.
I'm more of a goat person than a sheep person because I find in life that usually you're very strongly one way or the other.
Sure. Yeah. And honestly, I never thought I'd be into sheep, but sheep started as a 4-H project. My son wanted sheep out of nowhere. I don't even know where he got that from. And so we got sheep, and when we bought them, after he got done showing them, they were pregnant, and we had more sheep. And so we just kept it going.
And the sheep kept multiplying. Goats do that too, that's for sure. I've
Yes.
My 4-H project got out of hand as well up here. At one point, I probably had close to 100 goats. I think I have like probably 30 right now. We are working on cutting that back a little bit at the moment because it got a little overwhelming. But no, I definitely understand how those 4-H projects get out of hand quick.
Oh yeah, for sure. And what's great about these sheep is that, well, not just these sheep, but what I found with sheep is goats. I just had a hard time keeping them in. They were always escaping, and I have never once had a sheep get out on me. So that's why I really like sheep because I don't have to do anything. They just exist, and it's been awesome having them.
Yep, that sounds like you're describing them accurately, but I've done pretty well over the years. The kids sometimes I have a hard time keeping in still, but I've got the big goats down uh, about 95% in most of the time. How's that?
Yeah,
Good
yeah. The
description of
goats.
how goats go.
Yes. Yeah, the goats were something that my wife loved. We used to raise goats at one point. We raised boar goats for meat, and so she really missed them. She wanted some miniature goats, uh, and although I wanted to meet what she wanted, we also have a farm and we have to have a purpose for our animals. I couldn't give the space for miniature goats, so I compromised. We got some Nubian goats, so at least we can milk them.
Ugh.
So we're gonna give that a go. Um, So first I got her the two females, then she went out and got herself two more males. And unfortunately, we have friends that have goats, so she doesn't need my permission. She doesn't need my help. She knows where to go to get them, and it's not that far of a drive. So I have a feeling we'll end up with more eventually, but
Yes.
so far they're going well.
Friends help friends get goats.
Yeah.
I'm the cool aunt as far as my nieces are concerned. They've gotten goats for their birthdays, chickens, all the different things. So
Hmm.
I'm the aunt that gives the gift of farm animals. Sometimes
Yes.
my sister-in-law likes that, and sometimes I think she wonders why she got stuck with me that gives her kids animals, which she's, an animal person in general, but it's just funny because yeah, most aunts don't usually give the gift of animals. So,
Right.
um,
And then we're building our poultry. We have chickens that we're starting to sell eggs now. I probably only had like 30 chickens, but I want to build to like around 100. My coop could easily hold that. And then we also have and board horses as well. I grew up as an equestrian, so that's still a holdover from my previous life as an equestrian.
oh, very good. Yep, have a few of those as well. So I've got lots of hats up here in New York as well with all the different animals, even though you probably only see mostly cows on my social media.
Mhm.
And then you also have your social media page.
Yeah, yeah. On social media, I go by Farmer Advocate. Honestly, it started. I wasn't trying to promote myself. I was trying to promote other farmers. So I wanted to call myself an advocate for farmers. So I called myself Farmer Advocate. Since then, I've through some leadership programs and things, They've helped me develop my own story. And now, so not only am I a advocate for farmers, I am also a farmer who advocates. So I like to tell that it actually means two different things to me now.
Definitely, and it's a really unique viewpoint that you have, being able to advocate for yourself and for other farms. So that's a really neat. A lot of times, you're just promoting what's on your farm or talking about what's on your farm, and you have that different angle where you get, different farms and you get to kind of experience those different ways of life. So that's really
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, it's been really awesome getting to know other farms and seeing how, like in Florida, we have 300 different commodities. And just even amongst our own state, seeing how they grow things in different parts of the state has been really awesome to see. And then expanding that across the entire nation. It's just awesome to see how much farming can be different, but we all have the same end goal.
Yeah, definitely. I've been around Florida a little bit, and it is cool how, there's very different parts of Florida. And like the climate even almost gets very different just around the state, which is unique to that area, I would say. We don't have too much of that up here in the Northeast. Everything is just kind of very similar. So
Mhm. Oh yeah.
what part of Florida is Martin County in?
So I'm in the southeast of Florida. If you're
Southeast.
familiar with the map, there's a huge lake in the middle of the state. I am just to the east of that lake.
Okay. So like what's a major city, town?
So like Palm Beach is just to the south of us.
Okay, very good. So yeah, I'm pretty familiar with that area anyways. My grandparents are down not too far from there, so I get to luckily go visit them quite a bit, which is really nice.
Nice.
So let's, I guess, pivot to growing up. How were you raised? Did you come from a farm? Were animals, something that you were introduced to? How did that work?
Yeah, so I was raised in agriculture, but like I said, I was an equestrian. So my family owned horses. We had 800 acres in Palm Beach County, which for people who aren't familiar with Florida, if you hear about them talking about Trump and Mar-a-Lago, that was like 15 minutes from our ranch.
Okay.
So it was pretty interesting to have our ranch, all these woods and pastures in the middle of the city. But so that's where I grew up on the ranch. We probably had like 80 horses growing up. We also boarded horses. We did summer camps. We did trail riding, horseback, anything equestrian. We were doing it all. Pretty much just Western and pleasure riding, that kind of stuff. So I actually was listening to your podcast and in your intro video, talking about how in your childhood, you would be in the barns, you'd be playing with the cows. I had basically the same experience just with horses. My mom was the riding instructor. And so when I was a kid, I was always pulled along. And when she would be out teaching lessons, we didn't have a barn at that time. All we had was a tack room and a feed room and then big open spaces. So it was just me and the horses playing. And so I spent a lot of time just getting to know horses. I've got a really good feel for horses. I really do enjoy being around them. And so I kind of just grew up in it. My grandpa was a farmer in Illinois. He's kind of the one that really got the family going. When the Navy called in World War II, he went and served. He was trained in Florida, and after he got out of the Navy, he wanted to move back to Florida. So he picked up and moved, had met my grandma, and the two of them moved to Florida. And so that they kind of got us started. He had raised a couple horses on the farm up there, and he really loved horses. So he just started. That's how it just started, kind of as a hobby, and it grew to our family's business.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's a really neat story on how he ended up in Florida, and definitely getting into the horse business is really cool. I've rode since I was a little kid as well, and they are a huge passion of mine as well as cows. Unfortunately, mine don't make very much money, but I guess you can't really say the cows make a ton of money, but I guess they kind of pull their weight. I don't know.
Right.
My fancy barrel horse sitting out in my barn is he's cost a lot of money. He has not
Mhm.
made very much money, but I sure do enjoy him. And when I get that extra time to spend going out and riding with my friends and competing, that's definitely my thing that I really look forward to doing and relaxing. So I definitely share that passion of horses with you. And I did also have, had all the little ponies and stuff growing up, and
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
brats that they were. Oh gosh,
Right.
ponies. There's a
I
whole
did.
nother conversation for a whole nother day, just all
Yeah.
about ponies.
Oh yeah. No, I
But
had a Shetland, so that was the
oh
age of
yeah,
ponies.
yes. My dad bought me my first pony, and her name was Brownie. And I don't know exactly how it all went down, but I remember we ended up having to sell her because, which my dad didn't really know much about horses, but you'd tighten the girth on her and she would just flip herself over backwards. And we were like,
Oh,
nope,
jeez.
that one's not going to work.
No.
So, so we ended up getting rid of her and finding something a little safer. But one of my favorite pictures of me and my dad is because you could ride her bareback. That was the thing. She didn't like to be girthed up, so whatever. So it's actually him leading her and me sitting on her in my barn boots bareback. And it
Yeah.
was, yeah, one of my favorite pictures. So you'll have to stay tuned. Maybe I'll share it on my social media one of these days again.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, so you also said you were involved in 4-H as a kid in Martin County.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you
So
just show horses? Did you get into some other
mhm.
projects that way? How did that come about?
Yeah, and honestly, it was late. I was a late 4-H'er, so I didn't know anything about 4-H. Although I was in agriculture through the equine business, my family wasn't full on in agriculture. I didn't understand the big agriculture picture until much later in life. So my family, we had the ranch, but then we didn't live on the ranch. So my family, we moved to a new property where we had a little bit more land and had a couple of horses at the house. And down the street from us was where a 4-H club was having their meetings, and just happened to be the neighbor invited us in to see what it was like since we're the new kids on the block, and it kind of just stuck. At my very first 4-H meeting, it's kind of one of those things that uh, when in agriculture, a lot of times, they'll give you as much as you can handle. And I was given as much as I could handle my very first 4-H meeting. Being older, I think I was already a senior in high school, or just about to start high school, or just about to start my senior year in high school. So I was older, and they wanted to rope me in before I walked away and found other things, because it's kind of hard to keep the older kids in 4-H. And so they got me not only to be in the club, but they had me as a junior leader, and they convinced me to join the equine judging team, all in the same very first meeting. And but I couldn't imagine not being have that experience that I had. It just really, I was kind of a shy person, wallflower, and those experiences and those things they pushed me into really opened me up, and helped me to become like I am today, where I'm just able to have conversations and advocate the way I do.
Yeah, definitely. 4-H is such a phenomenal program, and that I didn't ever have the quiet in my shell personality. But it's just such a great program because it just teaches you to open your eyes to all the different things that are out there. And you just meet such great people through the program. I have lifelong friends that I met in 4-H, back when I was a kid. And I got introduced to it at a young age. And I'm just oh so grateful for all the opportunities that the program has offered me throughout the years. And I'm still very involved in our local 4-H. I try to help out judging different events and doing different things. My kids are just starting to come into the age that they're able to really get into 4-H. So it's exciting to see them start to get to experience it and be a part of it. So it's really cool that way.
Yeah, and my 4-H club leader and actually the co-leader both, like even today, I'm now 40 years old and they're still encouraging me. They're still reaching out. Hey, it's awesome. I see what you're doing. You're doing a great job. Like, 4-H, it becomes a lifelong thing. And it's not just my club leader, the people that were in my club. I've sat on boards. Like I was president of the local farm bureau for a few years. My vice president, we were in 4-H together. Yeah, and other people in our community who are leaders in the community, we were all in the same club together. So it's awesome that way back then I had no idea the relationships, the important relationships I was building with those people that I'm now using today. Um, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's 100%. It is just such a neat program in the way that it shapes you as a young person. And yeah, the relationships that you forge throughout life is just so really exciting and beneficial. And it's definitely, like I said, I love to give back to 4-H and do different things for them. And obviously it's come full circle for you working as a 4-H educator in Florida in the county that you grew up in. So you get to give back to it every day, which is also really cool. So you are into horses, you're into 4-H, you graduate high school. What happened after that? How did everything come full circle?
So when just like you said, I intended to go to college to be a veterinarian, and it wasn't until my first I think it was my first semester of college, I realized that it just wasn't going to be for me. I had both my veterinarian talking to me about why do you want to be a vet and helping me realize that my goals would not align with being a veterinarian. That paired with just uh, just the classes I had to take to be a vet, I realized it was not going to be for me. Um, and ended up being a family emergency that I ended up leaving college at that time. I didn't go back to college until a few years ago to get my degrees. Um, so after that, I went and became full time employed, and I went and worked at the local feed store. And through working for that feed store, I started making connections, started learning about other things besides horses, started learning about what other options were out there in agriculture, and I started showing interest in those things and following along. And it was probably in my late 20s that I decided, I think I'd like to do something besides just horses. And that's when I really started branching out into other things. I got into cattle. I actually raised beef cattle for probably 8 years or so. We had a big old Brahma bull, which is great for Florida because they have sweat glands. And then we had Hereford cows, so we're raising Brayford cattle, and really enjoyed doing that. Unfortunately, we only had 5 acres, but we leased the land next to us, so we had enough room for all of our cows. But 2020 was a pretty rough year, and not only did we have a big COVID thing, I lost my lease, and I lost my lease with a 2 week notice. The property owner, he kept promising me, "Don't worry, I'm going to have you re-sign a lease. I'm just busy. I can't get to you." And I had been leasing the land for a while, so I took him at his word. And then he gave me a very short notice to move my cattle, and there was nowhere to go. We have 1,000 people moving to Florida every day, uh, so the price of land is very high, and it's just not affordable to pick up new land, especially at a moment's notice. And I had to sell off all my cows. Um, And that kind of really got me thinking, like, so what am I? Who am I? Am I even still a farmer? You know, what is my value to agriculture? Um, and that's really when I started shifting my focus and went back to school, you know, rebranded myself, and that's when I started Farmer Advocate to help, you know, stay in the game, keep myself relevant. And I honestly had a lot of so I worked through a lot of imposter syndrome. At that time, I was part of the American Farm Bureau Partners in Advocacy Leadership Program, the PAL program, and it was me and 9 other farmers from across the country were in that program. They really helped walk me through that, and help me put myself back on my feet, get through those mental struggles.
Yeah, that would be so tough just all of a sudden having the rug, yanked out from underneath you and what you thought was a sure thing just all of a sudden just changing your world. I can definitely get how that could be, eye-opening, life-changing, make you reevaluate, who you are, who you want to be, and different things like that. We're really lucky just as an ag industry in general to have you on our side advocating for us all the time. We really appreciate that. So I do just want to kind of say something like that. You're really great to follow on social media, and I enjoy your stories and your different little tidbits that you have on there. So, I think that you've done well finding yourself, and I do just want to let you know we see you and we love what you're doing. So keep it up.
Thank you.
That's it's one of those things. I think on last week's podcast we were talking about how life has a way of putting you where you're supposed to be, and sometimes you really don't think that it's meant to be that way, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I see it now, this is where I'm supposed to be. So
Yes.
obviously life needed you to change, and that's what it took to steer you in the right direction. And there's always some type of master plan, and unfortunately we're not privy to it, it just happens. So
Right.
that's how that
Yeah.
goes on.
Yeah,
um
no, when I first sat in this seat as a 4-H agent, I started thinking back over the last 5 years. It's like, yep, that all makes sense now. Like all of that led to me being here. You know, now I have
yes,
all these experiences I can then help with our future agriculturalists that are coming up through the 4-H program.
100%. And I mean, you can share your ups and downs and
Mhm.
failures and successes with them and show them that, every time that you have a failure does not mean that you're a failure. It means that you're meant to do something else or keep
Yeah,
trying and you will be successful. So that's
yeah,
that's important to teach youth, I think, especially today, because I feel like the youth today is just so they just look for instant gratification. They don't look,
mhm,
a lot of them don't look for the long term plan. And I feel like just having a prime example in front of them, like you through 4 H, just showing them, hey, you know, you're not always going to be 100% perfect on your first try. Like sometimes it takes a few tries, sometimes it's life steering you in another direction. So take a step back, reevaluate, and see if you think you should stay in the same direction or head in a different direction. And just
yeah,
having prime examples out there that are successful like you are is just a really great thing to show youth that life gives you ups and downs, but you end up where you're supposed to be, and that's what matters. So
yes, yeah.
um so you've kind of already gone over my, third part as far as why you do it, because you want to show the greatness of agriculture and the uniqueness. Um, so I guess this is kind of putting you on the spot, and I promised I wasn't going to put you on the spot, but I'm gonna.
No,
Um,
good.
what are some fun Florida ag facts that you might have for us?
All right. So my favorite one, this one gets me in trouble on Facebook whenever I share it because they
I
think I'm
love
talking
getting
about a
in
racial
trouble on.
slur.
Yes, I love getting in trouble on Facebook. That's the best thing ever. Yes.
So Florida was the first place to have cattle in North America. In 1521, Juan Ponce de Leon, many people know Ponce de Leon with the Fountain of Youth. He was an explorer, with a Spanish explorer. He actually came in 1521 through Port Charlotte, which is on the Gulf side of Florida, and he brought cattle to the state of Florida. So about 100 years before Texas had their Longhorns, we had cattle in Florida, and they are called cracker cows. They are the official state cow of the state of Florida. It's actually called the
Huh.
cracker cow, and they're the descendants of those cows that were brought over 500 years ago.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So there are still cracker cows there or descendants of them or
Yeah, so we actually there are ranchers who have taken up the goal to preserve this breed. So we actually have, I know the state of Florida does have a cracker herd through the Florida Department of Agriculture. There are many other ranchers who also are into preserving this breed. You can find the Florida Cracker Cattle Association. They have a sale every year to sell off some of these cows to continue the preservation of the breed. Um, and then because these cows were all loose in the state of Florida, and you've been here, when you get away from the coast and you get into the middle of Florida, it's all pine scrub and saw palmettos. It's really thick. And so we didn't have cowboys in Florida. We had cow hunters. They'd have to, using dogs and things like that, they'd have to go hunt for the cows in these really thick woods. So that's pretty cool that we had a little bit different here that you were hunting the cows and they would actually go and find these wild cows, gather them up, and then drive them to the port, like Punta Rasa and places like that, and ship them off to Cuba or wherever the market would be at that time. So
that's fascinating. See, I even learned
yeah,
something. I love it.
yeah,
I love when I learn something new. Now I'm gonna go Google this after, just so you know. Just
yeah. Just
because I gotta
don't
see what
post
they look
about
like.
it.
Oh yeah, I don't want to get in trouble on Facebook, right? I'll be like,
Yeah, yeah.
farmer advocate told me to yell at him, not me, okay?
Yeah, I can tell you
Um,
though, every time they flag me, I have won the argument. I always contest it and I do win. But
I love it. So let's transition into a couple random questions, my favorite parts of the
yeah.
interview. Because I'm a dairy farmer, your go-to dairy product.
Oh man, so it's very specific for me. So local to me in Okeechobee, Florida, is Milking Our Dairy, home of Sutton Milk, and they make the best ice cream ever. So I'm going to go there, and I'm going to get their cinnamon bourbon ice cream.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. I do
Yeah.
love cinnamon. So next time I'm down there, I'm gonna have to travel out there now.
Yes.
Maybe you'll have to meet me for ice cream.
Yeah,
We'll
I'll
have
say
to
I'll
do
meet you
that.
there. Yeah.
He's like, I'm not missing an opportunity to get ice cream. Come on.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we're gonna have to do that definitely if I get down in
Oh,
that area. Favorite music genre.
oh man, I'm gonna say '90s. I don't even know what it's called, but like the '90s pop rock, I guess. I don't know what to call it. Like Everclear, Blink 182, whatever that is. I don't know.
I'm a huge Blink 182 fan, so
Oh, I love
love
Blink
it.
182.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some 41.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah. Perfect. Yes, we do speak the same language. Um, if you won the lotto without telling anyone, what's the first thing that we would notice?
Ooh, oh man. I'd have a new vehicle. Honestly, I think about that. I don't think I would change much. Like I just like living a simple life. You know, yeah, I don't think you'd notice much, honestly.
I like it. Well, you'd have a new vehicle, new
Yeah,
truck, something like that. Sports car,
yeah.
maybe. I don't know.
No, yeah, something that could fit the family, but just something new, something that has air conditioning, because right now mine doesn't.
Oh, yeah, that's tough in Florida in the summer.
Yeah,
I
it's rough.
even in New York, I think I would die with no air conditioning in the summer, so I get that. Um, let's see, we'll do one more of these. Let me think of a good one. Okay, your go-to meal, favorite meal.
Oh man, it's got to be chicken fingers, but it has to be the right honey mustard.
Only with honey mustard. If you don't have any honey
Yeah,
mustard, don't come at me with your chicken
yeah,
fingers.
yeah. No, and that's probably I probably like the honey mustard more than the chicken fingers. The chicken fingers are just the transportation mode, I guess.
Oh, that's awesome. I eat the chicken fingers for the honey mustard. It's
Right.
fine. Next thing you know, he's got honey mustard flavored ice cream and he's like, lay off me, okay? It's the
Oh,
honey
I will
mustard.
talk to the rocks about that. That'd be
Oh,
awesome.
oh, you lost me there, okay? Like that's you went too far. One step too far. Come on.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll go favorite movie.
Oh, man, Robin Hood Men in Tights. It's,
I I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Comedy?
No, that's comedy for sure. It's one of those
Okay.
comedies that you can watch it over and over, and every time you watch it, you'll pick up something new you didn't catch the time before.
All right, I'll have to look it up. I'll put it on my movie
Yeah.
list.
Yeah, it's along the lines of Blazing Saddles. It's kind of similar to that, but Robin Hood.
I'll have to give it a shot then. Why don't you give us one last shout out to where we can find you on social media?
Yeah, on social media, Farmer Advocate, one word on Facebook. There's a dash between farmer and advocate. Actually, sorry, there's an underscore between farmer and advocate on Instagram. Also on TikTok, although I'm not on there as much as I was. I'll get back there eventually. And then I do have a website. It's just farmeradvocate.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any last parting words for us?
Right? Get to know your farmer. Don't be afraid of your food. And, just, I guess that's it. Just get to know your farmer.
I like it. Short, sweet, and to the point. Get to know your farmer, right?
Yeah.
So David, thank you so much for joining me today on today's episode of the Dairy Hour podcast. This is your reminder. Please follow me, Dairy Gal Val, on all the social media platforms. And if you love what you hear on the podcast, please take a screenshot, share us on social, tag a friend, make sure everyone knows that you're listening to the Dairy Hour podcast. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and leave a review. You can find me on most social media platforms at Dairy Gal Val or online at dairygalval.com. Thank you so much for coming to the Dairy Hour.